Look, conservatism is about us. It is not about a bunch of guys collecting dollars in Washington, D.C., but for too long it was. They didn't come through. They didn't get it done. That's why 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we elected Donald Trump, because we were tired of them. And if they're upset with Donald Trump, they should be. He is a repudiation of them.
That is a great way to put it, and I think that's right. You have said that conservatives for far too long have been a get along, go along, just don't rock the boat kind of crowd.
Because you stand up for yourself does not mean you are uncivil and, oh, well, I never. We need to say no. We need to say no to nonsense. How much better off would we be if the first person who came up to someone and said, my pronouns are zip and zap, and you said, that's stupid, stop doing that.
Kurt, what are your pronouns, by the way?
Hi, everyone. I'm Bruce Karasik, co-founder of the Jewish Republican Alliance. Thank you for joining us today for another special edition of JRA LoudSpeaker. We're so happy to have Kurt Schlichter with us today, and we'll be speaking with Kurt in just a few minutes. But first, Trump or DeSantis, who will be our nominee? Who can win? Who will succeed if they win? So many important questions loom, and we have to get this right, because our country and the world are depending on us to get this right. One thing is for certain, if the election is based on issues, the Republicans have an advantage. I've been saying this for the last 3 years. But if it's based on what the Democrats are good at, ballot harvesting, collecting unsolicited mail-in ballots, early voting, no voter ID, and no in-person voting, then Republicans better learn how to play that game in the new world fast, or the advantage will quickly shift to the Democrats. And we cannot afford to have that happen again. So many questions are going to be asked of the American people in the next year or year and a half. Do we seal off our border, prevent drugs, criminals, and terrorists from coming into our country, and only allow people to immigrate here legally? Or do we support catch and release and continue to expose our nation to drugs and crime and disease, and secretly ship illegal immigrants all over the country and putting them up in fancy hotels at taxpayer expense? Do we provide help and build facilities to treat drug addicts, the mentally ill, people with disease who are incapable of taking care of themselves? Or do we turn our backs and just call them the homeless and cruelly let them sleep on the streets while our cities are destroyed? Do we prosecute and convict criminals and put them in prison? Or do we let criminals commit crimes over and over again, leaving our cities unsafe and leading to a total destruction of our way of life? Do we become energy independent again? Have enough energy to heat our homes, to cool our homes, to drive our cars, our trucks, run our businesses, make us a prosperous nation again? Or do we paralyze our nation by allowing Russia and China and other nations to become economically advantageous to us while we're crippling our nation because of global warming and climate change? Do we strive for peace around the world, peace through strength? Or do we participate in endless wars where millions of people die needlessly? Do we allow our parents to participate and have a voice in what our schools are teaching them? Or do we attack and demonize them and allow our children to be indoctrinated by the left? Do we support Israel and fight against anti-Semitism, bring back the Abraham Accords, and stop funding Palestinians unless they recognize Israel? Or do we allow Jews to be persecuted, killed, while we fund the Palestinians without any preconditions about giving up terror and recognizing Israel? Do we support our Christian brothers and sisters, who in many instances are also persecuted and imprisoned for their beliefs? Do we allow religious freedom for all Americans? Or do we turn our backs on Judeo-Christian values that have created the America that was once great and free? The answer to these questions and to other important questions will determine our destiny and our place in the world. And there is no room for anyone to sit on the sidelines. You must stay informed. You must get involved and make a difference. And the JRA will be your voice, and fearlessly speak out on the most important issues of our day. I want to thank you all for joining us again. And now I'd like to introduce, live from Franklin, Tennessee, Mitch Silverman, co-founder of the JRA. Mitch, take it away.
Hello, JRA community. It is always so great when we are together. The moment our special guest Kurt agreed to be on our show today, it made me think of a song. So we're gonna have a little fun. I'm gonna read you some of the lyrics, and you're gonna say, I want you to figure out what's the name of the song, you'll get that, who's the artist, and the hardest one of all, what year to come out. And the reason I chose this because it reminds me of Kurt in the most complimentary way. So here are some lyrics. We've got the right to choose, and there ain't no way we'll lose it. This is our life, this is our song. We'll fight the powers that be. Just don't pick on our destiny, because you don't know us, you don't belong. Oh, you're so condescending. Your gall is never ending. We don't want anything, not a thing from you. Your life is trite and jaded, boring and confiscated. If that's your best won't do. We're right, we're free, we'll fight, you'll see. And now the name of the song. We're not gonna take it. No, we ain't gonna take it. We're not gonna take it anymore. So the name of the song, We're Not Gonna Take It. Who's the artist? Quiet Riot. Who thought I'd ever be quoting Dee Snider on our JRA broadcast? And the year it was released, I had no idea. 1984, how prophetic. And the reason I thought of this is I started reading Kurt's column several years ago, and I reached out to him and I said, Kurt, we're both in the LA area. Let me buy you lunch. And we had lunch. And since then, we've had lunch several times. I like to call Kurt a friend. His style is in your face, unapologetic, bombastic, combative, funny, and correct. Now, do I say all this because I want to suck up to Kurt? Well, of course. But besides that, I want him to be an inspiration for all of us. Because like the song says, you have to have the mindset that we're not going to take it anymore. You've got to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. Look, the days of yelling at the TV in frustration or throwing down the newspaper are gone. It all boils down to one key question. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Now, Bruce and I, a couple of years ago, had a JRA strategy meeting, and he paused and he reminded me of a great quote from UCLA legendary coach John Wooden. And he said, do not let what you can't do interfere with what you can do. Now, I have a long list of things I can't do. I cannot write a daily column and 8 best-selling books like Kurt can. I know that, but I can do certain things. But the question is, what can you do? What are you willing to do? Well, at the top of my head, you can donate ever so generously to your favorite Jewish Republican nonprofit. All kidding aside, you can also volunteer your time for any cause or campaign that means a lot to you. You can register people to vote. You can canvass. You can run for office. You can support someone who runs for office. You can write letters to the editor. You can get in touch with your local, state, and federal elected officials, because now more than ever, your conservative activism is needed to preserve and defend the Judeo-Christian values upon which our beloved country was founded. I mean, it gets scarier every time we get together. So I'm going to leave you with a very wise and powerful quote from Jim Rohn. Some of you may recognize that name. He was one of the founding fathers of the personal growth industry. In fact, he mentored Tony Robbins. So last week I was listening to one of his podcasts, and he said something that's so deep and profound and simple and brief. The first part of the sentence, you may not agree with it first, but I want you to focus on the second part. And here's what Jim Rohn said. He said, evil is no match for good, but we must be active. Now think about it. For the last several decades, what is the typical traditional conservative good American done in their lives for decades? They got an education, many got married, a whole bunch had kids, they started careers, they went to church, they went to temple, they donated to charities, got involved with kids' activities. That's what we have done. What has the left done these last several decades? They were active. They very nefariously infiltrated almost every sacred institution that we have. And now we wake up and go, what on earth is going on with our country? So again, Evil is no match for good, but you must be active. Now is our time to be active. And now I get to introduce you to Kurt. He was personally recruited to write conservative commentary by Andrew Breitbart himself. He's a named partner at a growing LA trial law firm, a retired Army infantry colonel with a master's in strategic studies from the U.S. Army War College, and a former stand-up comic. He's a frequent guest on Fox News, Fox Business News, appears on air with such luminaries as Hugh Hewitt and Sebastian Gorka. And he's a best-selling author of many fiction and nonfiction books. As an Army officer, he commanded a cavalry recon squadron and served in Desert Storm and Kosovo, as well as multiple disaster operations. He lives in the South Bay of LA, where his hobbies include red meat and red wine. Kurt, welcome to our show.
Hey, thanks, Mitch. Thanks, Bruce. Holy cow, that was inspirational. I'm sitting here thinking, can we just take what they said and make that the Republican platform? And then we win. Because that, I mean, you guys cut right to the nub of it. You set the terms of battle, and you demonstrated what the requirements are from each and every individual. You bet we have to be active. We have to be out there. We have to be doing our thing as best we can do it. I do it on the radio. I do it in columns. I do it in books. But everybody can contribute something. And there's so many skills out there. There's each of us, like a little military story. A bunch of us deployed to Kosovo. We were California guardsmen. And I got the bright idea. I was one of the senior leaders. Most of us were lawyers. I actually once called the general Your Honor. I put together a spreadsheet of everybody's civilian careers. And some people had 2 or 3. And that was the skill set we built on to go in on our mission into Kosovo. Didn't fire a shot, but totally accomplished everything we needed to do, create a powerful ally, and succeeded. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to leverage individuals and individual abilities. And I know the folks in the JRA are going to be motivated, and they're going to be a formidable force. And I'm glad to have you guys fighting for us.
Thank you, Kurt. We're on your team, and we're happy you're on ours, and we're in for the fight, and we're fearlessly going to continue that. Even though YouTube has decided that they're monitoring our words, we're going to continue to find other ways and speak out. So, I alluded to a lot of great questions in my opening remarks. And what I've said for the last 3 years kind of came true in the midterms, where we had all the issues on our side, and yet ballot harvesting and early voting and unsolicited mail-in ballots and no in-person voting all led to just a squeak victory in the House, and we did not take the Senate. And now we've got 2024 in place. How do we get the Republicans to be able to become better at winning elections and not just at winning issues?
Well, Bruce, that's a great question. I was part of the insurgency against Ronna McDaniel to get Harmeet Dillon in there as the head of the RNC. And the reason I did it is, look, I'm a businessman, I'm a soldier. You either perform or you move on to a lesser job where you can't do any damage. She had lost 3-4 election cycles in a row and had not performed. Now the RNC decided to put her in, won fair and square. Okay. But I'm hoping she learned. Clearly, the battlefield has changed over the last few years. You identify it correctly. It is no longer about convincing people on the issues. There aren't any undecided voters out there. They all know what side they're on. The difference is the winning team gets the ballots counted. And that means gathering up. Look what we did in California. We got slaughtered the first time on ballot harvesting. We didn't understand it. We didn't know what was going on. And the Democrats went out there, built an infrastructure, collected ballots, and you know what? They cleaned our clocks. Then we came back. Then we started collecting ballots. We located ballot boxes at places where conservatives congregated. And we took House seats back. House seats that people didn't believe we could take, but we did take it. Look, we've got to fight. I don't like all these election rules. If you want to, I would do it. I love the way Israel does it. You've got to show up in person and with your ID on the day and you vote, and it's very, very, very rare that you have some sort of absentee situation. I love that. And I like it not only because of security, but because of the ritual aspect of all citizens getting together to cast their vote. A secret ballot, but you show up and you're around other citizens. I love that. That being said, that's not what the legislatures have decided. So until we can change the law, we got to fight on the battlefield that we're presented with. And the battlefield we're presented with has ballot harvesting, has extended mail-in voting, and a variety of other things that I don't like. But we've got to use them. The idea that we're going to make up a 40% deficit in votes because everybody shows up on election day. Look, on election day, you don't know if it's going to rain. There might be a hurricane. Your kid might get sick. If your vote is in, it's counted. That's the understanding we have to have for this new battlefield. So it's very important that we do what you said, Bruce, and react to the situation we're facing and not the situation that we'd like it to be.
That's right. Deal with reality as is, not as we wish it to be.
Yes.
Kurt, I read all of your columns. They're just superb. I've read your columns about who to vote for in each state. I've read your columns about the case for Trump, the case for DeSantis. I've read them all, and I encourage our audience to as well. What I want to ask you about is it gets really sticky because I listen to you. You're a conservative thought leader, and I listen to others, and we're all over the place, right? Sometimes people are all in for Trump. Some are all in for DeSantis. Some are convinced this one can't win, that one can't win. But the bigger issue is if these two titans tear each other apart, are we handing the victory once again to the leftists who call themselves Democrats?
Well, I think that's a legit concern, Mitch. I'm a pundit. I found myself in the pundit place. And what I want to avoid doing is telling people what to do. You don't need me to tell you what to do. Right. You need me to point out my ideas, what I think is important. Then you can evaluate them. And you say, that's a good idea, Kurt. That's a bad idea, Kurt. Now, you mentioned the Donald Trump columns. I actually wrote the case for Donald Trump and the case against. And this is the case against. You can see it. The right up here, Donald Trump signed it and wrote, Kurt, I will not let you down. You will be very happy. Best wishes, Donald Trump, which I thought was hilarious. Not the one for him, the one against him, which one of the things I kind of like about him is he zeroes in on his opponents or perceived opponents to try and win them over, which I think is very useful. Look, it's a primary. There's got to be a fight. My opinion is no secret. I think it's a two-man primary. I think it's Trump or DeSantis. One or the other is going to win, and either one can. Nikki Haley, not a fan. I think she's soft. Mike Pompeo, I like him. He's a normal, old-school Republican. I think he gets it, but there's no. And I've texted back and forth with him. We're both cavalry officers. I just don't think there's any Pompeo mania out there. Tim Scott, another nice guy. I don't need nice guys. It's not, or same with Mike Pence. Check your watch, guys. It's not 2005. Okay, it's with some of these guys, it's like the last 18 years haven't happened. My feeling about Trump and DeSantis, I like Trump. Trump was, I think, if not, it was at least the second best president of my 58-year life. I think he was fantastic, but I don't work for Trump. I'm not his friend. I don't have anything from Trump except that really cool signed column. I don't owe him anything. And yet sometimes I feel that I'm a better friend to him than people who are outright partisans, because I'm willing to say, I think you're making a mistake. And I think he's made some mistakes. I think picking a fight with Ron DeSantis was a tactical error. And I think his reaction to it, or at least his followers' reaction to it, which involves, in many cases, a lot of crying, because, Ron DeSantis, he let down trade. He's disloyal to Trump. Time out. Nobody is loyal to a politician. Politicians must be loyal to us. And again, I like Trump. I like him a lot enough to say, no, you're making mistakes. I like DeSantis too. I think he has strategically handled his race very well. But look, guys, when Godzilla and King Kong meet, Tokyo's getting flattened. All right? That's just how it's going to go. And this is going to be a bloody primary. I think the Democrats are going to have their own problems. But at some point, I wish all Republicans would do what I would do, which is I am going to support the Republican nominee. I'm going to play the game, and I'm going to salute at the winner who the people of the Republican Party pick. And there are some people going, well, I'll never vote for Trump. I'm never going to vote for Trump. Okay, that is an error in a number of ways. Or I will never vote for DeSantis. I will only vote for Trump. Okay, that's a vote for Biden. It is an error. Don't do that. I am a Republican. I'm going to vote for the Republican nominee, but I want the Republican nominee to be the very best. And you need a crucible to forge the strongest steel.
I couldn't agree with you more. And yes, we have to be unified. There's no room for division to be able to win an election. We need everybody to show up. You know, to use your phrase, we're getting our clock cleaned on the world stage right now. I mean, China and Russia are teaming up. Now the Saudis at the behest of the Chinese are now have a new alliance with the Iranians. The Iranians want to kill Jews. They're 12 days or so, they say, away from a nuclear weapon. We're losing on oil. We're losing, as you mentioned in our pre-warm-up about the betrayal in Afghanistan. We're losing. And how do we get out of this? How do we become dominant again? And we're probably even going to lose the dollar now as the main form of doing transactions. How do we get out of this?
Well, you know, Donald Trump said, you're going to get tired of all the winning. I didn't get tired of it. I loved it. Holy cow. Now, if you're my age, you remember watching network news back when network news mattered. And every day there would be something about the Middle East conflict. And Donald Trump came into office and effectively ended it with the Abraham Accords. Think about that. That is a strategic achievement. It's got to be in the top 10 of all American foreign policy achievements. Now, I have a controversial view. America's greatest foreign policy disaster the last 30 years was the failure to, if not make Russia an ally after the fall of the Soviet Union, at least bind it into the West so that it didn't fall into the Chinese. It has fallen into the Chinese, and it did not have to. I think America's greatest strategic challenge, the one all others flow from, is to deny China the ability to usurp our supremacy and make us a subordinate nation. And everything flows from that, including our handling of Russia, which means our handling of Ukraine, our handling of the Middle East, our handling of NATO, everything, I think, revolves around that. But what we have here is complete strategic illiteracy. For God's sake, these people, this administration eagerly wants to give the Iranians stuff. The only thing I want to give the Iranians is something 2,000 pounds that ticks. All right? One of the problems with these people, I think, our foreign policy establishment, is so many of them grown up and never been in a fist fight. Okay? They don't know what it's like to take a punch. They don't know what it's like to throw one. And they don't understand that some people are just bad. And the leaders of Iran are bad. The leaders of China are bad. The current leaders of Russia are bad. They are bad people who want bad things for their own people and want bad things for other people. And we would be their slaves if they had their chance. And you know what? They think they've got it. They think they've got it because we have a senile old moron in charge, and he's brought in a bunch of faculty lounge morons who have screwed up, the same people who have screwed up our foreign policy. Since pretty much World War II ended. For gosh sake, these people are terrible. They're unaccomplished. They have no track record of achievement. Look, we have not, the United States has not unequivocally won a war since 1991 in Desert Storm. I was there. Guys, winning a war is much better than not winning it. I can tell you. I liked it. We were unsurpassed and unchallenged at the end of Desert Storm. The entire world stood back and said, holy cow, don't cross these guys. And we squandered that. We threw it away. because we thought, oh, well, history's over, but history is never over. History, man, and what's so frustrating about this, folks, is none of what's happening should be a surprise. The realities of history and its lessons are not a secret. They're there in books. You just got to pull them down and read them. Nothing is happening now that didn't happen to the Greeks or the Romans. Okay? This is not new stuff. We know what happens when powers get into conflict. And we know what happens as empires age. And yet we're walking down the same path as everybody else, as if this is all a big surprise, because we have historically illiterate people with degrees in gender studies who are not serious. They have no knowledge of history, they have no knowledge of strategy, and they don't want it because they've already figured out what the answer is, and they work backwards. And that's exactly wrong.
Wrong and dangerous. So I want to dig a little deeper. There's a repeating pattern I see, and I know you know this. The Democratic Party, as dangerous and nefarious as they are we're always lockstep. They really know how to circle the wagons. We, on the other hand, we have a circular firing squad. Ukraine is a perfect example, and Trump DeSantis is another example. So my concern is this, Kurt. There are people I deeply respect that I listen to and read all the time, and they're completely at odds with each other. And I admire both, all of them. So last week, just to give you an example, a couple of days ago, Mike Gallagher on Salem said, wow, DeSantis's response was phenomenal about, hush money for a porn star. I don't know anything about that, okay? 24 hours later, same guy who I deeply respect is tearing into DeSantis saying he's tone deaf. You have to speak up that you cannot jail a political opponent. You can't throw rules of law out the door because you want to get somebody. So I could go on and on, whether it's Mark Levin or Dennis Prager or you or Mike Gallagher. Here we are again with a circular firing squad, and I respect all these points of view, but it doesn't help us win.
Well, look, there is a proper time for conflict, and that's now. That's the primary. This is where we do exactly what you're talking about. When we stop, I say, is when we pick a nominee. And I did it last time. Look, I was not a Trump fan going in. I was actually on CNN a lot till I got kicked off as the conservative Republican critic of Trump. And I would get on and I would often have criticism of it. I got kicked off when I defended him, as I should have, because he should have been defended at that point. I wasn't trying to be one thing. I was just saying what I thought. But I was a Cruz guy. I gave Cruz money. And it was, sad for me when my guy lost. We took a vote and we went with Trump. And I said, okay, because he won fair and square. And now I'm on board. And Trump won me over to the point where I wrote a book defending it because he performed. He did what he said he was going to do in the face of unspeakable abuse, lies, slanders, malicious prosecution. Donald Trump deserves our gratitude. But then again, politics is, what have you done for me lately? Great, I'm grateful to you. Are you the best guy in 2024? That's what we have a primary to find out. So I'm not as worried about that as is dissent and argument about specific things, but rather than a temperament for guys like John Cornyn of Texas. John Cornyn's the guy who thought it'd be a great idea to get with the Democrats to help them pass a gun control thing. Who is the Republican, much less one from Texas, who is sent to the Senate with a mandate to help Democrats restrict our Second Amendment rights? Okay, that is a guy, that is a guy who is fundamentally and at his base weak. I don't think Levin's weak. I don't think Gallagher's weak. Seb Gorka sure as heck isn't weak. Hugh Hewitt, who's a very friendly, open-minded guy, is also not weak. They have various and differing views. So I'm not as worried about the fight over issues as I am the fight over temperament. Are you going to give in at the moment we need you? Are you going to be there when things get tough? Or are you going to go, well, I'm afraid to sign this bill in my state, preventing men pretending to be women from going in women's locker rooms. Okay, when we need you, I expect you to be there. And I expect all hands on deck after the nomination. And if it is the guy I end up not choosing, because I'm going to choose somebody when California votes, I haven't chosen anybody yet, I'm going to be that person's foremost supporter because it's that important.
Right. Well, very well said. Very well said about temperament and the importance of that. One of the things I alluded to was energy is power. Energy is freedom. Joe Biden was on record saying he was going to bring down the oil industry, bring down the fossil fuel industry. He did that. He canceled the pipeline. Energy prices soared. Russia got rich on the high energy prices. They were able to use that money to invade Ukraine. And Americans are now slaves to the Green New Deal. You can't drive your car. You can't heat your home. You can't cool your home. They want to take away our cars. We have to take back our energy, in my opinion, to be powerful and to be successful and to be free. What do you say about that?
That is so true. Look, let me say it, and I want to be very clear. What they call climate change is a giant hoax. It is a lie and a scam designed to take power and freedom from you and transfer it to them, the ruling class, the ruling elite. And the evidence is undeniable. Okay? You look at it, it's been raining a lot in California. Well, that's obviously climate change. Also, the drought was climate change. And when the weather's normal, it's climate change. Now, I'm just a simple country lawyer from Los Angeles, but my question would be, what weather phenomenon would, to you, tend to disprove the existence of climate change? And your answer will probably be, shut up, you're a transphobe. Okay? I don't understand why people put up with this manifest nonsense. It's a strategic disaster. I do think there is a joy among these people. First of all, the rules don't apply to them. They fly to Davos in jets. The Obamas buy a beachfront property. The climate change price is always paid by us. You're not allowed to have your own car. You can't barbecue. We get to tell you more what to do. And there are just some people out there, Bruce, who love to tell you what to do. They get off on it. It's exciting. And I thought one of the reasons I was a pretty good commander is I didn't enjoy the commanding part. It was always at some level somewhat unseemly for me being to tell what other Americans to do. Now, I knew I had to. I knew I was commissioned to do it. I knew that was part of the military. But I always took it really seriously. And so did the best officers that I came up under. Because if you enjoy telling people what to do, you should never be in a position where you have the chance to tell people what to do. And we have a whole ruling class that is doing that. Okay, I don't believe in changing our entire society on the basis of the pending threat that it might get a degree hotter in 200 years. It's ridiculous. And you can tell it's ridiculous because they won't argue with you. They just try and shut you up. Well, we won't be shut up. The next president needs to say, climate change is a hoax. We're not doing any of it. None of it. No Paris Accords. We're not putting in new standard. We're not subsidizing green energy. Hey, if you can make money off green energy, more power to you. Let's go see you do it. I do like the idea of nuclear energy. I think that sounds like a good way to generate stuff. But of course they don't, which is further proof it's not really about the energy. It's about the freedom and the money.
Well, all I can say is Kurt Schlichter for president. That was a great speech. Kurt, we have a bunch of questions in the audience. I'm going to start with this one from Adam B. He says, if you look at 2022, so many Trump-backed candidates either lost or underperformed versus DeSantis, who really vastly overperformed. So his question is, do you think DeSantis, and I know what you're going to say, they're going to duke it out in the primary, but his question is, do you think DeSantis would have a better chance to win a general election than Trump?
I think if you ask me today, yes, DeSantis has a better chance than Trump. And the reason is Trump has a ceiling. There are people out there who hate Trump. Now, that's not an opinion. That is an objective fact. There are a bunch of people who hate him irrationally. I don't know if they hate DeSantis irrationally. If you're not irrational, your mind can more easily be changed. Now, stuff can change. Trump could thread the needle again, like he did in 2016. It's entirely possible. Look, if you're one of the two candidates, you're a Democrat, Republican, either of them can win. We learned that in 2016. There can be upsets. I think voters need to take that into account. I want to hear Trump's plan. How you go win Wisconsin? How you go win Michigan? How you go win Pennsylvania? I want to hear that from DeSantis too, because at the end of the day, I can be thrilled with either of them as president. Thrilled. If you could say, Kurt, Mitch, today you don't get to pick which one, but one of these two guys is going to be president, dude, you'd be popping a cork. So I think electability is going to have an outsized importance, as it should be, because we've got to be, as Bruce said, all about the winning, and that means technical aspects, getting the ballots in. What areas are going to be high payoff? What areas are low payoff that we don't want to devote a lot of resources to? We've got to be ruthless. We've got to win. As far as 2022, what a disaster. We had historical trends, we had political trends, and instead of a red wave, we had kind of a red mist, as a missed opportunity. Yeah, I think, look, I like Blake Masters, for instance, in Arizona. I introduced him at a fundraiser. I think he's an interesting guy. I think he would have made a great senator. But you know what? He didn't get enough people in Arizona to agree with him for whatever reason. Was there something wrong with him? Was Mark Kelly that much better? Look, we got to look at Herschel Walker, who I think is a great person, an inspirational person. He's got some baggage, but don't we all? And so did Warnock. Look, the people of Georgia didn't pick him. And, Dr. Oz, nice guy. I got a chance to talk to him a couple times. I think he's a real patriot, not as conservative as me. But again, nobody is. People in Pennsylvania didn't like him for various reasons. We need candidates that can win. And they may not be as conservative as I like, but we've got to, we have to, as Republicans, because we do it, when we're in a primary, I always say, vote with your head, not with your heart, because your heart will lead you astray. Your head, that's the money. That's the money option. Go with your head.
I want to move a little bit to the streets, to our cities. Our police don't want to arrest people because they're afraid that they're going to be prosecuted for doing that improperly. Police are taking early retirement because they're arresting criminals and the DAs are refusing to prosecute them. You can't walk in the streets without having to step over people who are in need of help. They've got disease, they've got mental illness, they're incapable of taking care of themselves, and we've just bottled that all up and called them the homeless. Like they just lost their job yesterday and they're sleeping on the street, but in reality, if you give them a home in Beverly Hills, it would be a disaster. So yeah. Whoever wins, whether it's locally or whether it's nationally, has to restore our cities. And how do we do that when we're fighting a culture war where criminals are favored and the people who obey the law are not?
Well, Bruce, we've seen various cycles in history where we've had chaos in our cities and there was a resulting backlash. And the last one was about 25 years ago. New York City was in the lead. Most liberal city in the world hires Giuliani, a former prosecutor, and he cleans up the city by saying, no, you can't be a bum. No, you can't do drugs on the street. No, you can't be a criminal. If you're a criminal, you go to jail. Look, we fixed all these problems before. We know how to fix them. It is just a matter of the will of the people of the blue cities to do it. And I think you're going to see in other areas this stuff is not going to be tolerated. So you're going to see two very different Americas: America where you're safe, and an America where you are in a petri dish of bizarre liberal social pathologies. And you and I can't do anything about it. The people of those cities have to decide that they want to. One of the problems is most of them are politically engaged. Another problem is there is you don't underestimate, as we saw with the climate hoax, the delight in imposing pain on normal people that our ruling class shows. Our ruling class likes that there are bums, because those bums are an in-your-face reminder of how bad you people are and you need to suffer. Now, they can't do it out in, say, my neighborhood, because all the rich liberals here in the South Bay of Los Angeles aren't going to put up with it. And if you saw a homeless dude shuffling down the street, there'd be 4 squad cars on him before you hung up the phone, because they're not going to do it in their house. The people who suffer are going to be the middle class and poor people in the cities. And the middle class and the poor people have to stand up and take charge of their own cities, because there's a lot more of them than there is of guilt-ridden liberals. And until they do that, they reap what they sow. And it's harsh, but that's the reality.
So Kurt, I want to talk about, to me, a very puzzling issue. And I'm going to use a recent example. Alan Dershowitz, he spoke live to us at the JRA in Thousand Oaks. He also appeared on our show, like you are, JRA Loudspeaker. He was on Glenn Beck the other day. And I know ideologically they are totally opposite. They were very nice and warm and cordial with each other. In fact, Dershowitz just came out with a new book, Get Trump, okay? And I think so, but here's my question. Here he is, fierce defender of Israel, Dershowitz. He's defended Trump. And on Glenn Beck's show, he said, I voted for Biden and I'll vote for him again, but you can't do this to Trump. It's for legal reasons. I'm pulling the hair out of my head and I'm asking you, what on earth has to happen for people like Mr. Dershowitz, because there's millions of others, that it doesn't matter what their Democratic Party does, they will not shift their vote. It drives me crazy. What are your thoughts on that?
I think some people are just born Democrat and they're never going to do anything else. And I get that. Look, I've never voted for a Democrat. It just would never occur to me. And if the Republicans completely screwed up, I would probably then just not vote. So I get that. But the good news is that folks like me and Alan Dershowitz are the exception to the rule. Most people are more open-minded. And, my hat's off to Dershowitz, because he really votes, while he votes on party, he also acts on principle. And he doesn't care who, he likes represent people who are designated villains. Klaus von, who the hell would want to represent Klaus von Bülow? I'm a lawyer. Who needs that aggravation? But he did, and he, it worked. He got justice, even for somebody who was not a great dude in many ways. So I'm glad there are guys like Alan Dershowitz out there, because they hold the principle. Their hold on party, I get it. I don't have to like it, but the other thing is, when you're getting people to change party or change who they are, they've got to do it. We have so many people in the conservative movement who will say, I started out a Democrat. I was very liberal. But what's liberal now is not what I believe. Nobody came and browbeat them or threatened them, which is how Democrats do it. I'm going to take your job if you don't say or think the right way. Conservatives are like, I don't care what you think. Oh, okay, you're a liberal. All right. And liberals are like, well, I thought you're supposed to hate me. No, I don't hate you. I mean, you're wrong. I'll tell you you're wrong, but whatever. And then they come around. There are a lot of Republicans who are former liberals. Not too many liberals who are former Republicans outside of MSNBC and the Bulwark. It's an interesting phenomenon.
I'm going to chime in on the Alan Dershowitz, because I was communicating with him last night, and he is going to come back on our show. And I had a chance to spend some significant time with him when he came out to Thousand Oaks, because I drove him out and back for an hour or two. And one of the things that he has done is he has not been afraid to speak out, as you said, Kurt, on issues that the Democrats don't support. And he went in front of the nation and defended Donald Trump against the impeachment hearings at tremendous cost to his reputation amongst his friends and his family, who did not want him to do that. And so I think I'm not as concerned, Mitch, about how he votes as to at least having a Democrat who is willing to speak out on issues and not just wear the D uniform and whatever they say, I'm going to say, okay, and walk lockstep. If we can at least gradually change and having Democrats see the other side, I think we can make some progress, because then people will hear issues and they won't be in a bubble and not hearing the true issues.
I think that, look, there is a place, an important place, for folks who hold to principles, like Alan Dershowitz does. He holds to real principles. Now, there's two kinds. Now, he holds to principles at a terrific personal cost. And you can read all sorts of, liberals will be like, oh, I saw Alan Dershowitz at Martha's Vineyard, and I told him he was a jerk. I'm a hero. Where's my parade? Then you find a lot of people, particularly the conservative incorporated types, the never Trumpers, whose principles are easy. Well, I don't like Trump. Now suddenly they're on MSNBC. They're getting book deals. Everybody loves them. Man, it must be great to be such an iconoclast that everyone loves you, a nonconformist, just like all your friends. It must be so easy when your principles happen to coincide with exactly what the ruling elite loves. How convenient that is, and how cowardly.
Months ago, before things started heating up between DeSantis and Trump, people said, oh, it would be great, a Trump-DeSantis ticket. And I said months ago, it ain't going to happen. They're both dominant alpha males, right? It's not going to happen. In fact, I think President Trump is a dominant alpha male, the likes of which we've never seen before as a president. So here's a question from our audience, Leonard G. Very interesting. He says, do you think if Donald Trump is not the nominee, would he run as an independent?
I think that, first of all, there's low T, there's high T, and then there's Trump T. He absolutely is the alpha. You're absolutely right. He and DeSantis can never be on the same ticket. That's crazy talk. Even if it wasn't, Florida, this is DeSantis's time. He makes his move, or he's going to end up being President Cuomo or President Christie. This is when he acts. Now, as for a third party thing, no, I don't think there's any chance. The reason is it's a lot of work. It's a lot of money. And you really burn bridges there. He knows he'll lose if he's a third-party candidate. It will cost him an unbelievable amount of money, because very few people are going to support him in any substantial way. You think any of these zillionaires are going to write a $1 million check to Trump third-party PAC? It's never going to happen. Plus, it's a giant hassle to actually organize it. I mean, just getting on the ballots in 51 states in the District of Columbia, I mean, that's a logistical task of considerable, heft. And I gotta say, Donald Trump, not great in the personnel area. So I don't think he's going to do that. My concern is he just sits back and takes pot shots at the winner. I think that will hurt his reputation down the road. But then again, in this society, we've gotten so compartmentalized. Instead of having to be Johnny Carson and appeal to 60 or 70% of America, you can be Jimmy Kimmel and appeal to 2% and also get rich. So Trump can have 5% of the people worshiping him and feel great. So, by taking pot shots. So I don't know what he's going to do. I hope what I would love him to do, if he is not the nominee, is say, I proudly support this guy. We had a tough primary. He held up under my punches. This is a tough guy. And if Trump wants to take credit for the win, all right, He can have all the credit he wants as long as we get a Republican sworn in January 2025.
I'm going to weigh in on that. If we all remember 1992, when Ross Perot ran as an independent and handed that to the election to Bill Clinton, I think it would be a disaster for Republicans if either of those candidates ran as a third party. Also, I think Donald Trump has to remember one thing, that if he is the nominee and he doesn't win Florida, game over, no way he can win the presidency. Whether he likes it or not, he has to, if he is the nominee, be friends and friendly and get the support of Ron DeSantis. Otherwise, Florida goes down the tubes and there's no chance of a Republican victory.
I think if Donald Trump wins the nomination, his number one supporter will be Ron DeSantis, and Ron DeSantis will be the acknowledged front runner for 2028.
Yeah,
From your mouth to God's ears.
No, I agree with that.
So, Kurt, one of the things that really caught my attention when I first started reading your columns was your phrase militant normals. I just love it. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, I'm teeing up a softball for you. But Kurt, tell us how you came up with that, what it means, and why it's so important.
Well, normal people are just normal people. And I got to say, if you're watching this, you probably aren't because you're politically engaged. Normal people, normal Americans want to focus on family and faith, the flag, going off to softball games, having a beer, having a picnic. They would love to turn over the running of the country to the people who are interested in that. They're like the kids at high school. I don't want to be part of the student council. I just want the student council to make sure that the, homecoming dance comes off. And if you guys want to do that, that's cool. That's your thing. I'm over here drinking beer out of the trunk of my Camaro. Okay. But sometimes politics forces them into action when there's crime, when the economy isn't working, they can't get a job and support their family, when there's a war and their kids getting sent away to fight in some place you can't pronounce for some reasons you can't articulate. That's when they get in, and that's when they get militant. We've seen it. We saw the silent majority reacting to the hippies in the 60s. We saw Ronald Reagan elected as a rejection of Jimmy Carter and his Biden-like, Biden-light legacy of failure. You saw it in the Ross Perot movement. You saw it in the Tea Party. You saw it in the Trump movement, and I think you're going to see it again.
Kurt, early grade for Kevin McCarthy as our new Speaker of the House. I think he's doing a phenomenal job.
I agree. Look, I was not a fan of McCarthy. All right, not a fan. He said what he was going to do. Then he won the job fair and square. So I said, okay, I'll give you a chance. And I think he's done a really, really good job. I'm thoroughly happy with it. I was semi-sympathetic to the guys rebelling against him. I liked that he built a compromise and won his position. I think the compromise was good and effective. And it's going to help anybody. But look, the guy pulled it off. That was his first test. That was a hard test. He was under a lot of pressure. He was against tough negotiators, and he came through. And I think he's done a good job so far. Hopefully he will keep doing it.
Kurt, we were blessed last week to have Heather McDonald on the show. I'm sure you know who she is. And I'm going to ask you the same question I asked her, because I want to delve a little deeper into something you said earlier today, Kurt. I gave the analogy last week of AA, that a lot of times that the only time an alcoholic can correct themselves is when they hit rock bottom and they go, okay, I have a problem. Yet here we are with record inflation, the list of things going wrong because of this administration, both by incompetence and by design, is horrific. At what point do Democrats say, this is it, this is rock bottom, I can't take this anymore, what these schmucks I voted for are doing to our country and to my family?
That is a great question. for normal people who become militant normals, there is a rock bottom, and some of them vote Democrat. There is a rock bottom where they say, no more, we're done. But understand this, for leftists, there is no bottom. Look at Venezuela. People in that country, which is oil rich, used to be the richest country in South America, which is one of the richest countries in the world. Now it's an impoverished hellhole. They are literally eating zebras at the zoo because their communist government is so inept. You would think, now look, if what I care about is the prosperity of my people, their safety, security, and freedom, and they've got to go to the zoo and, they're eating zebras, I'm going to think, okay, time to change course, but they won't, because that's not their goal. Their goal is power. As long as they have power, it doesn't matter if you're playing hopscotch around hobos, their needles, and their droppings on the sidewalk. Okay, that doesn't figure into it for them. It's not important. For regular Democrat voters, ones who aren't, it's like, well, I've always voted Democrat. I kind of think Trump's a little loud and obnoxious. I think the Democrats help the working man, and which is not true, but typical Democrat guy. Democrat guy's just not cutting it. So I'm going to vote for the Republican because I'm sick of getting my catalytic converter stolen out of my Honda. That's when it happens. So there is a bottom to hit. But remember, there are folks who are perfectly happy to hit bottom and keep digging.
Kurt, you are always a fabulous guest. The hour went by so quickly, and we want to thank you so much. You are welcome back anytime. And we so enjoyed hearing your opinions and spending the hour with you. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. The JRA is one of my go-tos and my favorites. Always nice talking to you, Bruce. And Mitch, we got to do lunch next time you're in town.
Yes. Hard to leave the land of freedom, but absolutely.
I know.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed it. I know we did, and hope you enjoyed it as much as us. As we said in the beginning, it's important to stay informed, get involved, and make a difference. We need manpower, we need money, and we need your support to be able to realize the issues that are speaking out against actually come to fruition, and they're just not just talk. We're planning live events. We're doing a lot of things behind the scenes, but we need you. We can't have you stand on the sidelines. We need your support. Send us emails, get involved, stay informed, and make a difference. And we'll be back soon. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.